Hi everyone, my name is Hunter, and Gladiator is one of my 5 favorite films ever made. In no particular order, it's Seven Samurai, Gladiator, LA Confidential, Goodfellas, and The Dark Knight. A few years ago when Gladiator 2 was officially announced, it made me think of the script that came out after the first Gladiator movie that Nick Cave wrote. If you don't know about this, it's an absurd script, and the specific purpose is essentially to say we don't need a sequel for Gladiator. It has Maximus basically returning back to life where he fights Jesus Christ in World War II. The purpose was not to make that film. Everyone knows that wasn't going to be made because everyone knew there was no reason to have a sequel. Gladiator tells a complete story. Maximus Decimus Meridius, father to a murdered son, father to a murdered wife, who will have his revenge in this life or the next, gets his revenge at the end of Gladiator. He defeats the emperor in combat in the Colosseum, and as he's dying, he returns Rome, which is an empire, back to a republic, because that's what Marcus Aurelius at the beginning of the original Gladiator movie wished for. The whole story's complete. He gets revenge on Commodus for murdering his family. In addition, he also honors Marcus Aurelius's wishes to turn Rome back to a republic. What should happen is that Rome goes back to a republic. There's no more emperors in the line of succession. Lucilla is the only one who could essentially claim the throne, but Rome's not going to allow a woman to take the throne. And she also is generally pro-republic. The end is perfect. It is one of the best movies ever made, and it's actually one of the best stories of all time. You don't need a sequel for this. It's kind of like my opinions on Star Wars, where at the end of the Skywalker saga, that's kind of just a wrap, because that's the whole story. Anakin is the chosen one. Why are we making movies 7, 8, and 9 that undo the whole point of movies 1 through 6? This kind of happened with Gladiator 2, and it seems to be that Ridley Scott just wanted to have cool fights in the arena again. Technology's a little better. He's like, oh, I can do sharks in the arena. Let's flood it. Let's have boat battles. There's no real story reason for this movie. And because of that, I'm just not interested. If you're a person who's seriously into movies and you actually care about these stories, and you go and you watch Gladiator 2, and if you choose to consider that movie canon, if you go back and watch Gladiator, it's going to ruin Gladiator. Why? Because the whole point of Maximus's struggle is null and void. Even if you could ignore that Maximus fails to return Rome back to a republic at the end of the movie, then you still have the issue that Maximus cheated on his wife, the person that he cares about, that he's dreaming about when he's like going between the void of life and death, who he's always talking about and saying how beautiful she is. Gladiator 2 makes canon that he cheated on his wife with Lucilla. His son is in Gladiator 2, but Gladiator, we all know his kid died. He doesn't have another kid. So if you make a sequel and you undo all this, it ruins his character a bit because he's not this fully moral man. Even though Maximus is moral, you can argue that because he cheated on his wife, he's a less moral man than we would expect. In the first movie, he's set up as someone who obeys his vows, who he gives you his word and this happens. He will carry out the task no matter what. That is the general he is, and that's why he's so respected by Marcus Aurelius. Now, if he's just going around and he's banging whoever he wants and he's cheating on his wife who he's made a commitment to, and remember, none of this is in the first movie. It's hinted at that he had a relationship in the past. It's never during the marriage. We are led as an audience to believe that he's a completely perfectly faithful husband and father. He is not cheating on his wife that he loves very much, and the whole point of him is to return to them. This kind of undoes a bit of his character if you consider this canon. It's less important that Rome failed without Maximus to make the transition to a republic than it is that he is an unfaithful man. And the truth is you can't trust his vows because he's starting to pick and choose. I'm essentially left with a choice where, do I want to ruin Gladiator, one of my favorite movies, just so that I can re-enter that world and see some cool battles in the arena? No, I don't really want to. This isn't going to win Best Picture. It's not going to be nominated. It's not going to get anything. No one's going to consider this a great movie. One of these will always be considered the classic, and then at some point people will be like, oh, did you know they made a sequel to that undid many of the things that people loved about the original? You don't have to support these kinds of movies. I know Ridley Scott, if he was watching this, would tell me to fuck off because Ridley Scott does these things, but he really is undoing his work when he does things like this, and it's pretty disappointing to me. He is one of the few directors that can get large budgets, and it's really bad when you're reaching for these bits of nostalgia. You can easily undo everything that makes it so great, and you just have to be careful of that. You know, these things matter to people. These are good stories, and they matter for your legacy too. I might butcher the word, but it's a French word, and it's your oeuvre. It's essentially your canon of work. So you're not defined by your best movie or your worst movie. You're defined by your entire legacy of movies. Ridley Scott had Gladiator as basically his best movie, and it really helped to bring up his overall oeuvre. But the problem is when you make a movie like Gladiator 2, and it now undoes some of the things that made Gladiator so great, you get a bit of this. So Gladiator is not as good if you consider Gladiator 2 canon. I know it's probably dumb and Ridley Scott doesn't care about legacy and he'd probably insult me for just bringing it up, but this is something to consider if you're a writer. Don't open up something that's closed if there's not a specific reason for it, and you better be damn sure that it is respectful to the source material and it is respectful to your past self and all those people who put so much time into creating that original property.